Most people think they know what discipline is. They think it means waking up at 5 a.m., going to the gym every day, saying no to things you enjoy, pushing through pain, being hard on yourself. They think discipline is about control, restriction, suffering. And because of that, most people want nothing to do with it. But what if that picture is completely wrong? What if discipline is not the opposite of freedom? What if it is actually the path to it? That idea might sound strange at first. So let us start from the beginning. The word discipline comes from the Latin word disciplina. It means instruction, teaching, learning. Its root is discipulus, which means student, or follower. Not prisoner. Not soldier. Student. Discipline, at its core, was never meant to be about punishment. It was about growth. About becoming someone capable of more. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. And that forgetting has cost a lot of people a lot of years. Think about how the word feels when you hear it. For most people, it carries something heavy. Something imposed from outside. A strict parent. A demanding teacher. A rule you did not choose but had to follow. No wonder we resist it. No wonder the first reaction is to pull back. To find a reason it does not apply. To tell ourselves we are just not that kind of person. But that is not what discipline actually is. That is what it became in our minds. And there is a real difference between the two. Think about the people in your life who seem the most free. Not free like they have no responsibilities. Free like they are in control of their own lives. They do what they say they will do. They are not pulled around by every impulse. They have energy. They have direction. They show up. Now ask yourself. Do those people seem undisciplined? Almost certainly not. There is a retired Navy SEAL named Jocko Willink. He wrote a book called Discipline Equals Freedom. His core idea is simple. The more disciplined you are, the more freedom you actually have. If you are disciplined with money, you are free from financial stress. If you are disciplined with your health, you are free from preventable illness. If you are disciplined with your time, you are free to do what actually matters. The undisciplined person is not free. They are a prisoner of their impulses. They want to do something but cannot get started. They want to stop something but cannot make it stick. They feel stuck. Not because life is hard, but because they are not in control of themselves. That is not freedom. That is a different kind of cage. And many people live in that cage for years. Comfortable enough to stay. Uncomfortable enough to feel it. They scroll when they plan to sleep. They spend when they plan to save. They avoid when they plan to act. And they wonder why nothing ever changes. The cage is not made of iron. It is made of small daily surrenders to whatever feels easier in the moment. So here is the real definition of discipline. Not the punishing one. Not the military one. Discipline is the ability to do what you decided to do, even when you no longer feel like doing it. That is it. That is the whole thing. It is not about being tough. It is not about suffering. It is about keeping the promise you made to yourself. Now here is where psychology becomes interesting. For decades, researchers believed willpower worked like a muscle that could run out. The psychologist Roy Baumeister proposed what he called ego depletion. The idea that every decision you make uses up a limited mental resource. And when that resource runs low, your self-control weakens. His famous experiments showed that people who were forced to resist eating chocolate cookies, and had to eat radishes instead, gave up sooner on a difficult puzzle afterward. Their willpower tank was lower. So they quit earlier. This is why making decisions is exhausting. Why the end of the day feels harder. Why you eat well in the morning and then fall apart at night. But here is the twist. And this is important. More recent research shows that willpower is not just a fixed tank. It is also deeply affected by your beliefs about it. People who believe willpower is unlimited tend to perform better on self-control tasks. People who believe it runs out tend to use that belief as a reason to stop. What this tells us is that discipline is not purely physical. It is also psychological. It is shaped by the story you tell yourself about what you are capable of. And that story can change. There is a second thing that research tells us about discipline. A more hopeful thing. The more you practice self-control in one area of your life, the easier it becomes in other areas too. Psychologists call this a carryover effect. When you build the habit of exercising consistently, you often find yourself eating better without trying. When you discipline yourself to wake up at a regular time, your focus during the day tends to improve. When you keep your physical space in order, your mental space often follows. It works in the other direction too. When one area slips, others tend to follow. Sleep gets worse, and suddenly the diet falls apart. Work stress increases, and the exercise disappears. Because self-control is not isolated. It is connected across everything you do. Discipline, once built in one place, tends to spread quietly into others. Like a quiet fire that warms more than the room it started in. This is why small acts of discipline matter so much more than people think. Not because one push-up will change your body. But because one kept promise teaches your brain something. It teaches you that you are someone who follows through. And identity is more powerful than willpower. James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, makes this point clearly. He says every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you want to be. Go for a walk, that is a vote for someone who moves their body. Open a book, that is a vote for someone who values learning. Do the hard thing when you do not feel like it, that is a vote for someone who keeps their word. No single vote decides an election. But enough votes in the same direction changes who wins. When you see yourself as someone who does hard things, you are more likely to do hard things. Not because you forced yourself. But because it is who you are now. That shift, from willpower to identity, is where real discipline lives. Not in the gritting of teeth. Not in the white-knuckled effort that burns out in 2 weeks. But in the quiet, settled belief that this is simply what you do. Let us be honest about something though. Discipline is not always enjoyable. Some days it is genuinely hard. There will be mornings when the alarm goes off and everything in you wants to stay in bed. There will be afternoons when the work feels pointless and the distraction feels very reasonable. There will be nights when the effort seems too much and the results seem too far away. And on those days, no quote and no motivational video will feel like enough. Those moments are not signs that you lack discipline. They are the moments when discipline is being built. Because discipline does not form when things are easy. It forms in the gap. The gap between what you feel like doing and what you decided to do. Every time you close that gap, even by a small amount, something grows in you. Not muscle. Not skill. Something harder to name but more valuable than both. The confidence that you can trust yourself. Think about what that is actually worth. Most people cannot fully trust themselves. Not really. They have made promises to themselves and broken them so many times that a part of them stopped believing. They say they will start Monday. Monday comes and goes. They say they will go to bed earlier. The phone stays on. They say this year will be different. It looks a lot like last year. That pattern is painful. And what makes it painful is not just the unmet goal. It is the eroded relationship with yourself. Every broken promise to yourself leaves a small residue. You barely notice each one. But over time, that residue builds into something heavier. A low, quiet doubt that says, I know I will say I will do it. But will I actually? Most people carry that doubt around without ever naming it. They call it laziness. Or lack of motivation. Or just not being that kind of person. But what it really is a trust problem. A relationship problem. With yourself. And the only way to fix a trust problem is to start keeping your word. Not with grand gestures. Not with dramatic New Year resolutions. With small, specific, kept promises. Made to yourself. Honored quietly. Repeated. Discipline, practiced consistently, repairs that relationship. It is a long, quiet process of proving to yourself that you are someone you can count on. And once you have that, once you genuinely trust yourself, the external circumstances matter much less. Because you know that whatever comes, you will show up for yourself. Not perfectly. But consistently. Now, here is something worth addressing directly. Some people confuse discipline with harshness. They think being disciplined means being tough on yourself. Punishing yourself when you fall short. Pushing through at all costs. Never resting. Never being soft. That is not discipline. That is self-punishment wearing discipline's clothes. Real discipline includes rest. It includes adjustment. It includes compassion when you fall short. Because a person who is genuinely disciplined knows the difference between a hard day and a failure. They know when to push and when to recover. They understand that burning out is also a form of losing control, just a slower, quieter one. Think about a musician who practices every single day. Not the same intense session every time. Some days it is an hour. Some days 20 minutes. Some days it is just picking up the instrument and putting it back down. But the practice never fully disappears. The relationship with the craft stays alive. That consistency, even on low-energy days, even in the smallest doses, builds something intensity alone cannot. Mastery. And the identity of someone who does not walk away from what they care about. That is what we are really talking about when we talk about discipline. Not punishment. Not perfection. Not the harshest version of yourself winning every internal battle. Just the quiet daily choice to stay in relationship with what matters. To not abandon yourself when things get hard. To show up, in whatever form that takes, and keep going. So what does discipline actually look like, practiced well? It is not dramatic. It does not look like a training montage. It looks like this. You said you would do something. And when the moment comes, you do it. Not because you feel inspired. Not because someone is watching. Just because you said you would. That is it. Over and over. Without ceremony. And day by day, choice by choice, you become someone different. Not harder. Not colder. More capable. More grounded. More free. The ancient Stoics understood something about this that modern life tends to forget. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome. One of the most powerful men in the world at the time. He could have lived any way he wanted. And yet every single day he wrote in a private journal. Not for an audience. Not for history. Just to examine himself honestly. To keep his thinking clear. To hold himself to his own standards. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is not the language of punishment. That is the language of someone who understood real discipline. Not control over everything around you. But full ownership of what happens inside you. Your attention. Your response. Your next step. And he practiced this while managing an empire, facing wars, and dealing with personal loss. Not because it was easy. But because he knew that without inner discipline, no outer achievement meant anything. The most disciplined people in history were not machines. They were deeply human. They struggled. They had bad days. They doubted. But they kept showing up. Kept keeping their word to themselves. Kept doing the work. That is what this series is building toward. Here is something worth sitting with before the next video. Think of one area in your life where you feel least in control. Not the biggest problem. Just one area where you often do what you did not plan to do. Or do not do what you did plan to do. Maybe it is sleep. Maybe it is food. Maybe it is how you spend your evenings. Maybe it is a habit you keep saying you will build but never quite start. That is your gap. And that gap is not a character flaw. It is not proof that you are the kind of person who cannot change. It is just an invitation to start building something. In the next video, we go deeper into one of the most misunderstood parts of discipline. The difference between motivation and discipline, and why chasing motivation is often exactly what keeps people stuck. After that, we will look at how habits actually form in the brain, and how to work with that process instead of against it. We will also explore what happens when discipline becomes toxic. When the structure you build starts working against you. But everything starts here. With this one reframe. Discipline is not your enemy. It is not the thing that takes life away from you. It is the thing that gives your life back to you. One kept promise at a time. I hope this video brought you something meaningful. If you find it helpful, please like and share it with someone who may need it. Subscribe if you would like to hear more stories like this. Wishing you a calm and peaceful day.